All right, so we're just going to quickly finish up the 3.6 notes here. So the things we skipped in the first video were just the stuff on the calculator. So you'll take out your graphing calculator. We're going to start with example number 2. And what we want to get through here is just how we do these operations on a calculator. And we just use that to do things like check our work or maybe apply or use it as a tool for maybe the work that's a little too hard by hand. So the things we need to address is just how to input information into a matrix. So on your graphing calculator, the matrix button is right above the inverse or the negative first power that you see there. So it's in blue, it says matrix. So the way that you work with them, you hit second, and then you go to the matrix button, and you'll see 3 tabs. So the names, I already have some in here just to help with the video. But the first tab is just how you'd actually pull them up. So like I have a matrix already prepared. If I just use the names and I hit enter on this screen, it's just gonna say, here's your matrix. So under the names tab is where you recall them. And I just want you to think of matrices as like actual objects. It's like a table, it's a thing. So this is where we get them from. The next menu, the math menu, is a bunch of things that you do with matrices. Matrices are extremely applicable to real life, which means they are a very deep, I would say, field of study per se. We'll never really use too much of this stuff, but it's just operations that you can do with matrices. Edit is where you actually enter the data to create a matrix. So whatever one you choose, so I'm going to choose option 1, that's the one that you're going to create. So I'm taking this from your notes. What you first need to do is tell the calculator the size. So again, I'm just doing table A here. And table A is 3 rows by 2 columns. So 3 rows by 2 columns. And then all you do is just enter the numbers. So -5, and if you hit enter, it just goes across the row. So just go ahead and enter that data, so -1, and understand that you have to enter to actually confirm the entry, similar to entering it to a list. And once you enter all that data, you are free to move around. Oops, if you put a wrong number in, it doesn't like that. You can move around and then change things that are wrong. You don't have to just go linearly like that. So again, let's enter one more, matrix B. So I hit second, and then I use that matrix button. I want to edit a matrix. So I'm just going to go to the edit tab. I'm going to enter the information for matrix B, which is the second number. So again, we have to tell it how big it is. It's 2 columns by 3, 2 rows by 3 columns. And then again, we just enter that data. So -4, 5, 0, -2, 1, and -3. So take a moment to enter matrices C and D. I've already done that just to facilitate the speed of this video. And again, what you can do to check your work is just pull them up. Whoops. Got to get out of my matrix first. So again, one thing that you also want to know, once you have information in there, you don't ever really clear a matrix. You would just redefine it and re-put stuff into the entries. So there's no real clear matrix button. Like I said, you would just redefine the matrix with a different size and different values. So then once you have those matrices in, like for example, A, they want us to multiply A and B and then add the product of matrices C and D. And then just becomes literally entering that into your calculator. So we recall the matrices. So I want to do A and then find the product with B. And I want to add, so second matrix, the product of C and D. And then when you hit enter, it's going to give you a matrix back. So that would be the answer for letter A. I'm just going to throw that into the notes so they get posted. And then you would move on to example B, and it's literally just typing those things in. So I want to take -3 times matrix D, and then recall matrix A, and then it'll give me that. And that's really all we want you to have to work with right now with matrices. Is just know how to do some basic operations with them. Now, the last example that we skipped in the first video is just one property of matrices that we wanted to address with you. And it's a little bit easier to go through on the calculator, so we don't have to do as much by hand. And I referenced this in the first video, just kind of saying sometimes matrices behave like we want them to. Like, for example, when we did something like 3 times a matrix A, let's say, and then we added another matrix D. I'm just using the calculator notation. We saw things that were important, like we did multiplication before we added. So a lot of those rules are inherent to us because we're really good with numbers. What we want to quickly understand with matrices is that matrix multiplication, as we can see from our definition of we have to check sizes, just think about visualizing flipping some of those sizes around. What we want to get through and just see when we multiply two things, what we have in our notes already for you here, is that matrix multiplication is not commutative. Now remember, commute means move. So let's look at how we could move a product around. So if I did A times B, let's just do that on the calculator. So matrix A. Now I already have them redefined in my calculator just to save time. So like on my calculator, I think I put them as E and F just so I didn't have to spend time redefining them on my calculator. You can go ahead and erase your A and B if you would like, or again, just redefine them as two separate matrices. So to multiply these two, so the first one times the second one, we get this product here. So I'm just going to pull that into the notes. When we see the matrix there, we can look at its individual entries. I'm just going to highlight the individual entries that we want to see on mine. Right, this was the product that we're looking at there. Now, what they're asking us, what if we flip the order of multiplication, right? So in other words, commute one of the matrices and put it first rather than second. So if I put matrix F first, and then I try to multiply it by matrix E second, see how we changed the order there? We get a completely different matrix. Not only does it have different entries, it's not even the same size. So we just want to recall, or not recall, excuse me, just understand that operations with matrices don't always follow the rules that we think they would, because they're not just like regular numbers, they have different rules. So we can see that the matrix multiplication is not commutative because when we switch the order, right, the product of E and F is not equal to the product of F times E. So that's what we finish up with these matrices.